this online exhibit from Google Arts and Culture on reconstructing World War I trenches. Moving through here, you will see that there is information on how soldiers lived in their trenches. We also get a glimpse inside a recreated trench where you can see some men posing as soldiers with some of the equipment that they had within the trench, and also talking about some of the fighting and things that went on inside of World War I trench warfare. As we continue to spin around here in the trench, you see a medic treating one of the soldiers. So please answer the question on what do you think is going on with the medic and this soldier in this picture. Coming back here inside the trench again, we get an idea of what life was like. It was dangerous and dirty, but also downright dull. Men were killed in their millions, and those that lived had to cope with the appalling conditions. Let's explore some more of what it was like in a trench. So because the enemy was able to attack at any time, the soldiers had to work in shifts to be the lookout. Sleeping on the job was a serious offense. So if it was your turn to do watch, you needed to make sure that you were awake and ready and on guard at all times. So here are some of the other things that soldiers had to deal with. They had to be ready for battle at any moment, but they also had to clean their weapons. They also had to do maintenance within the trenches, repairing and helping to keep the trench walls secure. And here is a hint about what was potentially going on from the previous question. With the soldier experiencing trench foot. It's an infection caused by standing in the damp, muddy conditions within trenches, within fighting. Your feet would get wet from being out in the elements, and then you would have serious infection come about, causing amputation many times. Here is a recreation of a medic treating an injured soldier in the area known as No Man's Land. Please go and respond to the question on what it felt like to a medic to work in conditions like this, and what were some potential problems, potential risks, potential things that the medics had to endure or had to think about or deal with as they were working in World War I. And this is just some more information on the soldiers and the medics. They had some temporary hospitals set up. Some soldiers, the conditions of the war was so terrible that they wanted to get out of there alive in any way possible. So bloody injuries became something that occurred, where a soldier would do harm to themselves in order to get a minor injury, an injury enough to land them in the hospital and sent home, no longer able to fight, but obviously an injury that did not do any continued long-term permanent or death, just a way to get out of the fighting. So here is some more information on what medics had to deal with. A priority of theirs would be to get the soldiers back to the trench. Easier said than done with while battle is still going on and the conditions that are on the field and around the area where the injured soldier was laying. And oftentimes the medics were faced with some difficult life or death decisions. Would you help a wounded soldier, given that there was probably little to no chance of them actually surviving? Do you risk your own life as a medic to go and save that person? And what other difficult decisions are being made, not only trying to save yourself as the medic, but also if something happens to you, you would not be around and available to help others who could be saved if you were there to help them. So shell shock, a form of post-traumatic stress disorder, was something that the soldiers shell shock initially came about after World War I. There was a lot of this that was seen. Obviously, soldiers in any war, in any battle situation could have post-traumatic stress disorder, but it was the first time that a name such as shell shock was given to it. The doctors weren't sure at first what the mental impact of being in a war and hearing the explosions and being part of what was going on actually had on a person. Unfortunately, there was little sympathy for the victims of shell shock and post-traumatic stress disorder. They were seen as people who just deserted the war and deserted the fighting and the battle. But a lot more research and a lot more has been done on the mental health and how that needs to be a priority as well for soldiers in wartime. So this is some about the weapons that the soldiers had used. Please go and answer the question on weaponry used in World War I. And our little tour is going to end here. We'll pick up with the rest in another session.